In a quiet rural town of old America, where wooden fences lined the dirt roads and the air smelled of freshly cut hay, lived a curious little boy named Samuel. At just 7 years old, Samuel was always wandering between the apple orchards, the riverbank, and the neighboring farms. One morning, while passing by the chicken coop of Mr. Grady, their grumpy but well-off neighbor, Samuel spotted a single warm egg resting in a nest. He looked left and right, saw no one, and with trembling fingers lifted the egg from under the hen. His heart pounded. This was wrong. He knew it. But it also felt strangely exciting. Holding it carefully, he ran home. "Mom," he said, panting, "look, I hatched this egg myself." His mother, Martha, looked at the egg for a moment. Instead of scolding him, she smiled faintly, took it from him, and said, "Well, aren't you a clever boy?" She boiled it, sliced it in half, sprinkled a little salt, and fed it to him. That day, Samuel learned his first dangerous lesson. If you take something and no one stops you, maybe it isn't wrong after all. Weeks passed, and Samuel's small acts of mischief grew. Sometimes it was an apple from the neighbor's cart, other times it was a few coins left unattended on a store counter. Martha never once questioned him. If she noticed, she said nothing. In Samuel's mind, this silence was permission. Around him, life in the town went on. Men smoked their pipes on wooden porches, women hung laundry to dry, and children played marbles in the street. But inside Samuel's growing mind, a seed had been planted. A seed of cunning, unchallenged by any moral boundary. He began to think, if my mother believes in me, no one else's opinion matters. By the time Samuel turned 12, he could slip into a general store, pocket a small item, and walk out without anyone suspecting. He learned which floorboards creaked, which merchants were distracted, and which pockets were easiest to pick. He saw the gap between the rich and poor, the rich in their fine coats and horse-drawn carriages, the poor in patched clothes and worn boots. And Samuel started telling himself, I take from those who have too much. I give to those who have too little. Whether or not it was true, this thought comforted him. But deep down, it wasn't about justice. It was about the thrill. By 20, Samuel was known in whispers as the gentleman fox. He had charm, wit, and a disarming smile. In the poor districts, he was a hero, the man who would bring bread, coal for the winter, and sometimes even silver coins. In the homes of the wealthy, he was a nightmare. He left no trace, no clue. The town sheriff doubled patrols, but Samuel was always one step ahead. His mother, now older and frailer, still lived in the same small house. She never asked him where his money came from, and he never told her. One cold autumn night, Samuel robbed the mansion of Henry Blackwell, the richest man in 3 counties. Blackwell was no fool. He had guards, dogs, and locked gates. But Samuel was better. He left with a bag of jewelry and a gold watch worth more than a farm. The poor rejoiced the next day when mysterious gifts appeared at their doors. But Blackwell swore revenge. He began offering a large reward for anyone who would reveal the gentleman fox's identity. The sheriff, pressured by Blackwell, began interrogating townsfolk, searching barns, and setting traps. Samuel grew more cautious but couldn't stop. The thrill and the admiration of the poor had become like air to him. He couldn't live without it. But slowly, whispers began to spread. Some people in the poor district started to fear that his robberies would bring trouble upon them. Samuel ignored the warning signs. One night after a daring robbery of a merchant convoy, Samuel returned to his hideout to find it surrounded. Someone had betrayed him for the reward. Armed men rushed in, overpowered him, and dragged him through the muddy streets. For the first time in years, Samuel felt powerless. In the crowd, some of the poor watched silently, unable to meet his eyes. Others looked relieved. Samuel was thrown into a cold, damp cell. The air smelled of rust and mold. He knew the trial would be swift. The evidence was overwhelming. For hours he thought about his life, about the path that had led him here. He remembered that single egg, that morning, his mother's smile, and something inside him twisted with a mix of anger and regret. The day of his execution arrived. The town gathered in the square, the air thick with tension. Samuel, bound in chains, walked with his head high. When the sheriff asked if he had any last requests, Samuel replied, "Yes, bring my mother here. I wish to see her before I die." The crowd murmured. Word was sent, and soon Martha appeared, her hair silver, her eyes wide with fear and sorrow. When she reached him, Samuel embraced her. But as he held her close, his hand moved to her ear, and in a swift, shocking motion, he bit and tore it. Gasps filled the square. Guards pulled him back. Martha cried out in pain. The sheriff, enraged, shouted, "Why would you harm your own mother in your final moments?" Samuel's voice was cold, but steady. "When I was 7, I stole an egg from our neighbor. I came to her with it. She could have told me it was wrong. She could have stopped me, punished me, taught me better, but she smiled and cooked it for me. That day she let the thief in me live. And now, here we are." Silence hung in the air. The crowd looked from Samuel to Martha and then back. Some saw truth in his words, others saw only cruelty. But the sentence was carried out. By sundown, the gentleman fox was gone. In the years that followed, people told his story, some as a warning to parents about the seeds they plant in their children's hearts, others as a legend of a man who lived by his own code.